They called him the Monster King long before anyone had seen his face. In river towns, mothers shut curtains at dusk and warned children not to take the old road into the northern hills. Priests in the capital spoke of an ancient hunger wearing a crown. Soldiers lowered their voices when they said his name, King Vila of Nightfall, because fear, repeated for years, becomes tradition. In Larkmead, where I lived and stitched coats for travelers, that fear arrived as a decree sealed in black wax. The Council of Dawn ordered every household to give grain, silver, and a vial of blood to keep the Monster King contained. It sounded tidy, like law. But it felt like theft dressed as protection. At the apothecary, I heard old Mara whisper she couldn't spare a vial. She was already frail, her wrists thin as reeds. Before I could stop myself, I said, if the council fears him, why feed him? And if he's truly a monster, why would he accept what's taken from the weak? The room went silent. That evening Captain Rusk summoned me to the square. He called my question treason. Then, instead of jailing me, he chose something sharper, humiliation. He took my sealed vial and smashed it against the fountain stone. Glass snapped. My blood streaked the pale rock. Let it stain, he told the crowd, so all remember. I stood there while my face burned and people stared as if I'd dirted the air. And then the night itself seemed to pause. The wind stilled. Lantern flames barely moved. At the edge of the square, beneath the oaks, I saw a cloaked figure, too still to be a townsman. His face was half hidden, but what I felt from him wasn't hunger. It was grief, quiet and heavy, like someone witnessing something he wished he could undo. No one else seemed to notice. I blinked, and he was gone. I walked home shaking. Halfway down the lane, a small leather pouch rolled into the lamplight near my feet. Inside were coins, and a note written in careful ink. For the vial you no longer have. For the dignity you were denied. No name. No threat. Just a soft answer to cruelty. I cried that night, not from fear, but from relief that someone had seen me and chosen kindness instead of silence. After that, strange mercies appeared around Larkmead. Old Mara found grain on her doorstep with no footprints in the mud. A winter cloak appeared outside the chapel the morning the first frost came. A boy who fell into the river survived because a fisherman swore an unseen hand steadied his boat. People called it luck, but whispers spread of a pale figure on the riverbank who watched until the child breathed properly, then vanished. Captain Rusk, meanwhile, grew tired. He fumbled his keys. He stared too long at sunsets. One day he clutched his chest in the square, shaken and angry, as if something inside him had faltered. That night another note appeared beneath my door. Not all who wear sunlight serve it. When the next full moon came, the council's collectors arrived in a white wagon stamped with a golden sun. The town lined up with vials like guilty secrets. Captain Rusk promised punishment for anyone who refused. I couldn't sleep. The notes and the quiet help didn't fit the monster stories I'd been taught. Before dawn, I wrapped my shawl and walked the old road into the northern hills. By midday I reached a dark stone keep nestled into the hillside, no banners, no guards, no dramatic warnings. Only swept snow and a strange feeling of order, like a place kept carefully because care was still possible. The gate stood open. The door opened before I touched it. King Vila stood there, tall, pale in winter light, hair unbound, eyes tired rather than cruel. He looked less like a legend and more like someone who had forgotten what it felt like to be spoken to without fear. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "I had to know," I whispered. "Was it you?" He didn't deny it. He simply looked at me and said, "You were hurt." Inside, there was a low fire, a kettle, and 2 cups waiting as if he practiced hospitality in loneliness. I told him about the pouch, the notes, the grain, the boy. He listened without pride. When I asked why he helped people who hated him, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Once I tried to be known." He told me he'd been a prince before the council existed, before the stories hardened into law. War brought sickness, he was dying, yet a stranger offered him survival at the cost of becoming something the world would never welcome. "I chose to stay," he said, as if that choice had never stopped echoing. He'd thought he could still protect openly. But fear was useful to the council. They turned him into an enemy who couldn't defend himself in daylight. "Fear is an easy tax," he said. "They tell you it keeps you safe. It keeps them powerful." I forced myself to ask the question that embarrassed me: did he need blood? "I have needs," he said, calm and honest. "But not what the stories teach your children to scream about. I take from no one without choice. I do not take from those who are afraid. Fear spoils everything it touches." When I asked how he survived, he said, "I go where there is abundance and ask. And there are nights I go without." That sentence stayed with me, an immortal king choosing restraint so others could keep their strength. Before I left, he warned me not to return. Not because he would harm me, but because others might follow. "Curiosity is another kind of hunger," he said. At the door I asked why he wrote to me. "Because humiliation is a wound that grows in silence," he replied. "I wanted you to know you were seen. And I do not want your voice to disappear." When I returned to Larkmead, I kept his truth to myself. I understood now, if I defended him openly, the council would only say I'd been bewitched. Their lie would tighten. So I watched and waited. During collections, old Mara shuffled forward trembling with her tiny vial. Then a sudden commotion, spooked horse, fallen cart, apples rolling, broke the line. In that brief chaos, a person in a plain dark cloak gently guided old Mara away toward the chapel alley. The air around them felt like that same stillness from the square. Then the figure vanished. Old Mara blinked, tucked her vial into her pocket, and walked home. No shouting. No punishment. Just a small mercy slipped between the cracks of authority. That night, another note. Not all battles are won with banners. Winter grew harsher. The council demanded more. But quiet help continued, enough to keep hunger from becoming famine, enough to keep despair from settling completely. Then, on the last day of winter, the upstream bridge collapsed under heavy snow. The river surged toward the lower homes, threatening floods by nightfall. The town rushed with ropes and sandbags. Captain Rusk shouted orders, tense with fear. I worked beside my neighbors until my arms shook. Across the river, near the trees, I saw him again, a dark cloak, a stillness that didn't belong to panic. Vila stepped to the broken span and placed heavy stones into the river's path, one after another, with patient precision. The current split around them, easing its bite on the bank. The townsfolk cheered, calling it luck and teamwork because that was safer than the truth. For one heartbeat, Vila turned his face toward the town, toward me. No triumph, only that quiet grief and something steady beneath it. Then he disappeared into the trees, leaving behind a safer river and homes that would not flood. That evening Captain Russ caught my sleeve. His voice had lost its sharp confidence. "You think he's watching us?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. He swallowed. "Why hasn't he?" He couldn't finish. "Because he isn't like you," I thought. "Because power doesn't have to mean punishment." Aloud, I said only, "Maybe the story you've been told isn't the whole story." He let go, suddenly looking older than his years. That night I walked to the edge of town where fields met the dark line of trees. I didn't call out, but I felt that familiar stillness settle near the branches. "I won't tell them," I said softly. "Not yet. But I won't let them forget kindness exists." After a pause, a voice came from the darkness, quiet enough to doubt, steady enough to believe. "Thank you." I whispered, "I'm sorry," though I wasn't sure if I meant sorry for fearing him, or sorry for living in a world that needed him to be a monster. The night answered with a gentle easing, like tension letting go. The council still ruled after that. The Monster King was still feared. Legends don't disappear quickly. But in Larkmead, something shifted. People spoke a little less eagerly about monsters and a little more carefully about protectors. Old Mara began sharing instead of hoarding. The boy who'd nearly drowned grew into someone who respected the river instead of hating it. Captain Rusk grew quieter, less hungry to humiliate. And I kept mending clothes, nets, and small tears in the town's thinking. When someone spoke hatred, I asked gently if hatred had ever kept a child warm. When someone praised the council's light, I asked why that light always demanded blood. Sometimes, on cold mornings, grain appeared where it was needed. A fence got repaired before livestock wandered into danger. A lost traveler was found before the night took them. Always unseen. Always without payment. And slowly I understood, fear can make a legend, but kindness can make a life. The world might keep calling Vila a monster, but I had seen what he truly was, someone who answered humiliation with dignity, hunger with restraint, and danger with quiet protection. In the end, what changed everything wasn't a battle or a speech. It was the simple realization, soft as dawn on snow, that true kindness can exist behind fear, and sometimes the gentlest humanity is the one the world refuses to recognize.